Welcome to Dads and Dollars podcast with your host, Stanley Funches, certified financial planner, business owner, author, speaker, and father of three. Listen as Stanley shares his valuable insights around fatherhood and finances gained from over 20 plus years of experience. You'll hear stories, lessons learned, and the ups and downs he and his guests have encountered on their journeys as fathers, professionals, and business owners. These shared lessons will help provide you a path for financial independence while celebrating the challenges of being a dad. Thank you for joining the conversation. Here's your host, Stanley Funches.
Good day. Welcome to Dads and Dollars, the podcast where fatherhood and finances are woven into many life topics. My name is Stanley Funches. I'm a certified financial planner by profession and a father of three in this thing called life. We are glad you can join us for season 1 and episode 19. And in this episode, we're going to talk about cars. And are cars really a symbol of our wealth and status? Let's discuss. All right, so I've had this thought about cars and new cars for the last few weeks, and I'll get to that later of why this has been on my mind a lot. But also, it's just kind of funny. I think about February and the month of February, and growing up, I mean, you probably think of Valentine's Day, we think of Black History Month, but it's also tax refund season. And so growing up, it was a big thing when tax refund season started because everybody was wanting to go out and get a new car. You know, people in the neighborhoods where you would see them driving around their new car when tax refund season happened. So again, thinking about, you know, where I grew up and when I grew up, February and March were, you know, February was Valentine's and Black History, but it also was, hey, it's new car season. And so, you know, and we all kind of had these car fantasies at one point in time, right? I mean, I know when I was younger, a kid, we used to, when we traveled or when we'd be in the neighborhood, somebody drives a nice fancy car and we'll see it and we would all play the game, that's my car. All right, you guys don't have to confess if y'all played that game or not, but we used to fantasize about the fancy cars and say, that's my car. And we used to get in arguments because if two people call the same car, no, that's my car. That's my car. So, and so that was some of the fantasies we had as a child. But then also, you know, when I think about when a new car comes into the house, whether it's my family as a kid or even when my kids were younger, you know, a new car comes in the house, everybody kind of celebrates that new car. And the family has a level of happiness to it. And I mean, some people even name their cars, right? And so there's a special affinity that comes with a new car purchase. And, you know, cars have been a status symbol, you know, probably throughout this country's history. I've been watching this show on Paramount Plus. The show is 1923. If you haven't watched it, you just gotta watch it. It's a great show. It's a prequel to Yellowstone, and it's a sequel to 1883, which was also fantastic. So I highly recommend both of those shows. So it's kind of like in the middle of the season for 1923 right now. But one of the kind of backstories is that, you know, a lot of technology is being introduced to the West in the early 1900s and 1920s, and cars were being introduced. And, you know, the wealthy, sophisticated people, they were buying their cars, and you can tell they were walking around proud and had their chest out high. And it's so funny because when you see the ranchers who are holding on to this idea of their horses and the rugged man or the rugged woman versus this new sophisticated group of people in cars, you could see how the status symbol of having your own automobile, even in the 1920s, and how that still plays today. So I guess, you know, having luxury cars and luxury car purchases still have that hold on many of us today. And I think about, too, you know, the book Millionaire Next Door, and, you know, he talks about the car trap, you know, as a status symbol, you know, and how our youth are kind of indoctrinated into the fact of that an expensive item cars or expensive cars are an indication of affluence. And, especially you think about today, from cars to jewelry to houses to clothes, they're posing for the gram, that's still the case as well. I mean, youth kind of think of as expensive items and they're more affluent. But what people don't know, that many people who drive expensive cars, they don't have great wealth. And we'll talk about the reason why a little later. But so kind of getting to my personal experience, I've had a recent run-in with a repairman with my car that I've had for a while. See, so my car, I bought it back in 2014. Now, probably around 2012, I had this burning desire to get a car. I mean, other cars were paid off. My business had kind of turned the corner a little bit and got to the next level. And I was like, man, I want to get a car. I want to get another vehicle. And I identified the car I wanted. Now, it wasn't a Bugatti. It wasn't a Lamborghini or Ferrari or anything like that. I'm not in that tax bracket. But the car I wanted was a Infiniti QX80. I mean, I just had to have it. It was totally out of my league, but I had to have that car. And so I did my research and found a car that I think would kind of benefit me. And so it was a birthday treat. My birthday was coming up, and I even named the car. I named the car the Beast. So bought me an Infiniti QX80. I had been researching it for a while. I had gone to lots, and I was determined not to buy a car when I went to the lot. I was like, hey, I'm going to the lot, and what I'm not going to do is let them talk me into it. But I would research, and I would look at the cars. I would look at the features I wanted. I would go back, look online, compare prices, and do all those things. And one evening, closer to my birthday, before I purchased the car, I was looking online and saw something in Atlanta, and the car was probably about $10,000 of anything that I've less than anything that I had seen before. And I just knew it was my car then. It was destined to be for me. And I mean, I think I was up late at night emailing the salesperson, hey, I want to come in and get it. I loaded up the family. They say load up the family, move to Beverly Hills Billy's reference, but don't ignore that. But no, we loaded up everybody, drove to Atlanta, and I bought my car and drove back here to Birmingham. Now, in hindsight, I probably bought the car a couple of years too soon. I probably could have did some other things with that money in the first year or two of having the car. But hey, financial planners, we make emotional money decisions too. And I really wanted the car. It felt like the right time. It felt like the right price, and I bought it. But one of the things I was determined to do, I was hopeful that I could keep it maintained and I could have it for many, many years. So I was so obsessed about trying to keep the car maintained that I even let my kids eat in the car. I mean, at that time they were, 14, 11, and 9, and I wouldn't even let them eat in the car for about 5 years. So I wanted to keep the car maintained, feeling new to me. So here I am. I'm almost 9 years with this car. It just crossed the 200,000 mile mark. I've had some repairs here lately, nothing major, but it has given me problems for a few months here. And the thoughts have crept into my mind because this last repair cost was $2,000. Again, not very large, but it was a cash outlay. And I have some more repairs to go here in order to keep it. As you can imagine, with a 200,000 mile car, things just has to be done in order to keep it maintained. But thank God I haven't had any major repairs to date. However, this has me thinking, okay, when do I get a new car? Hadn't thought about one in a long time. And when do I get a new car? How do I prepare for this? And many of you probably have faced this question or will face it because cars don't last forever. But I can tell you, for me, I looked forward to the last purchase. It was something I really wanted to do. I am not looking forward to this next car purchase. It doesn't feel good to me at all. It's not something that I'm like excited about. And here's why I'm not looking forward to it. And that what I'm going to say is that you have to be careful about your car purchases and car purchases in the future. And one of the things that we have to kind of shift our paradigm of thinking car purchases as a status symbol to more of it's an expense, and we have to treat it that way. So if I take the example, just kind of looking and running some numbers and say, hey, most cars, they're so expensive now, right? I mean, supply chain coming out of COVID, car prices are fairly expensive. So we take just a $60,000 car, and we assume an interest rates have gone up. Let's just assume I did some research and even in one of the local credit unions here, if you finance some of the best rates for a longer term is 6.4%. And that's an 84-month term. So that's 7 years. And I know you can go shorter than that. We'll talk about that in a few. But 84 months, I just wanted to kind of see if you spread it out longer, you get a 6.4% rate, what would that loan look like? Now, one of the things that you guys probably don't look at that I would encourage you to is the total loan cost over the life of the loan. That's the price you paid and all the taxes and whatever add-ons you had, plus the interest of the loan of the life of the loan. How much would you have paid for this car over the entire, in this example, 84 months? So if you buy a car for $60,000, you pay some taxes on it, you pay 6.4% interest, and you do it for 7 years, you would have paid $80,000 for this car. Okay, so $80,000 for a $60,000 car. And part of the reason why I'm not looking forward to it is that interest that you'll be paying for it. Now, NerdWallet says, NerdWallet is an online site, and they say that cars depreciate 20 to 30% the year after you drive it off the lot. They depreciate, but the year after you drive it off the lot, it'd be 20 to 30%. So let's just use that example and say 30%, I paid $60,000 for it, it drops 30% a year later. So that means after the first year, that car would be worth, in most cases, $18,000 less. So it'd be worth $42,000. So now this $60,000 car a year later is now worth $42,000. And I want you to guess how much now the loan would be for this car. So your loan, assuming you didn't put anything down, and you got the terms that we talked about before, you pay taxes, no other add-ons. Your loan after that first year, if you guess, it would be still close to $60,000. It'd be around $56,000. See, because the bank gets their money first, the interest comes first. So when you're making your automobile payment, the bank applies the money to the interest and very little to the principal up front. So you can look at the amortization tables and it'll say, hey, $56,000 would be the balance after that first year. So what does that mean? That means that I have a car that's valued at $42,000 and I have a loan that's $56,000. So I have negative equity of $14,000. Now, if you listen to my previous episodes, you'll know that I'm talking about net worth. That's the assets that you own minus what you owe. And our job and our role and what we should try to do is to grow our net worth, right? We want what we own to be far greater than what we owe. Now, in this particular instance, the car is, you owe more on the car than the car is owned for. $14,000 of negative equity is dragging your net worth by $14,000. And it's probably going to get worse in the next 2 to 3 to 4 years because the car keeps depreciating at a rate greater than your loan pay down is. Probably won't hit some type of crossover point to where where the equity in the car and the loan, probably about 6.5 years of this 7-year loan. So for most of the entirety of this loan, you're going to be what we would call upside down. You probably heard that term. So again, this negative equity is going to last for a long time. And you're going to have $14,000 up front. Now, y'all be out here complaining about your portfolios and 401k dropping, in a quarter, and you have things in your garage. As soon as you drive it down the street, is dropping, at places that it won't regain. So just think about that. So how can you make a car purchase, and how can you make it where it's a less negative purchase, right? So the car is going to depreciate, but what are some of the things that you can do to kind of dampen that effect on your net worth? So those are the points I want to give you. I want to give you probably like 10 different things that I would say you should look at doing. All right. The first thing is buy within your means. All right. Don't go out here and get a car that you cannot afford. Buy within your means. As Charlemagne on Breakfast Club says, act your wage. So if you ain't making it, you don't have it. If you don't have the net worth, if you don't currently have the savings, then don't pay that much for a car. Get something affordable. Number 2, do your research on the buying process and the car. All right, do your research on the price for the features that you want, the ones that you really need, the ones that you like. Do your research to find out how that car should be priced and make sure you stay in that range. Find cars, automobiles that's going to retain their value, that don't depreciate so quickly. You can research different cars and see which ones depreciate faster than others. Find those cars. Okay, so that's part of your research. Maintenance costs. See which cars are going to cost you a lot to maintain. That goes to the overall cost of the car and the life of it. Your interest rates. Know what your interest rate is. And don't just go out and buy the nice, sexy, so you can stun on the gram or at your local country club car. All right, find a car that is reliable, that you can get at a good value. All right, number 3, make sure check your credit, make sure you built your credit, make sure you have good credit so you can get the lowest rate possible. All right, so the credit and getting the lowest rate possible. Don't always accept dealer financing options when it comes to credit. Negotiate those financing options. Shop it. Go to your local credit union, your community banks. Try to find better financing options. No buy here, pay here's. Okay, so some people who maybe listen to this podcast, you have a different status or a different financial level, and you're not even considering buy here, pay here's. But there are people who listen to this podcast who are learning, and those are not the places that you go to build your savings and build your wealth, is buying at buy here, pay here's. Take time, build your credit, save for a down payment, be able to go and get a car through financing through a local bank or credit union, and not basically a buy here, pay here. All right, number 4, be aware of the add-ons in your paperwork before you sign it. Warranties are one of those add-ons. Now, I'm not saying don't get a warranty. I'm not saying that they're not good. Sometimes you might need to get one, depending on what type of car you buy, depending on several factors. But just know that will add to your loan, which will add to your negative equity as the car depreciates. Okay, so be aware of what you're doing there. Check your paperwork for unnecessary charges to make sure they're not adding on other things that you don't like or want. All right. Number 5, consider whether you buy used or new. Now, in The Millionaire Next Door, he also talks about, used cars and new cars. And I don't think he's always saying buy used cars. Not all millionaires buy used cars. Okay. But what they do, they're not concerned about having the latest model. So if they buy something new, they're not trying to flip it every 2 to 3 years. They're not concerned about having the latest, newest, greatest model. They buy it and they hold it for longer. Okay, so consider whether you're buying used or new, but again, don't just buy used just because, oh, the millionaire next door or the book says, hey, buy used. There are nuances to it of reason why people buy used. Now, used cars sometimes is great because that depreciation hit that we talked about that first year is already gone, so you get it priced a little bit better, and you can get a model, a nice car at a better value price historically. However, the last several years, you got to be very careful. I mean, we went through a time in COVID, there was a scarcity in used cars, and prices of used cars were probably just as much sometimes as new cars or newer models. And low interest rate environment, sometimes they were selling new or program cars or new cars, and they were giving you 0% interest. And a used car, a program car could be 3 or 4%, and the total cost of the loan could be a lot less if you had bought a new car. So there are situations where the new used car argument, you just have to make sure that it's the best way for you, but you should consider whether used or new is the right time and if it fits you better. Okay. All right. So number 6, consider will a down payment or whatever level of payment you make will make your terms better. Meaning that sometimes if you put a little extra down, you can get a lower rate. Again, lowering that total cost and total cost of what that loan is, and you can negotiate that. So you can see what levels of down payment you need to help you with that total cost of your loan. All right. Number 7, consider whether you can afford financing for less years. Now, in my example, I say 84 months, 7 years, right? But if you can finance for 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, that payment's going to be higher, right? That payment's going to be higher, but that total cost of loan may be lower, and that equity break even, where I said, hey, it's going to take 6.5 years for your equity in your vehicle to match your loan balance. If you've compressed that and have less years in your loan, then you could help your net worth situation there. Number 8. Now, don't just go in thinking about which car or what fits your car payment. You might have an idea, I only want to pay X number of dollars a month. And you go to the car dealership and they say, hey, the first question they ask you, how much you want to pay a month? And you say, hey, I want to pay X number of dollars. Well, then you didn't take into account the total cost of your loan. You didn't take into account your price. You didn't take into account your interest rate. And they're not taking that into account either. So I'm saying that that's not in your best interest to just come in with a monthly payment number. You can have a monthly payment amount that you have within your budget that you want to stay in. And that could be between you and your significant other, whoever's going to look at a car with you. But you need to be thinking about these items and saying, what's my interest rate? What's the price of the car? What are the add-ons? What are the things I'm paying for? What's the total cost of the loan over how many years? You need to be thinking of those things, because that impacts how long that negative equity would be there. All right. Number 9, don't ever, 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 never roll negative equity into another car. Okay. In my example earlier, you have $14,000 of negative equity. Let's just say, for instance, that year passed and you don't like that car anymore. You want to get rid of it. So you go buy another $60,000 car and you trade your negative equity car in. So that means now that $14,000 and that $60,000 car, assuming you're not putting anything down, is now a $74,000 loan. And the very next year, this $60,000 car, how much is it going to be worth? Probably $42,000. and you got a $74,000 loan, it's probably going to be a $70,000 loan, and you got a $42,000 car. You only just made the problem worse, and you're cycling in more and more negative equity, which, again, net worth stays negative, right? Because you're not saving money probably, and you're having your automobiles create negative equity for you. You're owing way more than you own. Number 10, keep the car maintained and try to hold it forever. Forever. Now, I mean, all right. So forever is a mighty long time. But so maybe say longer than 6+ years is the minimum. 10 years is ideal. Okay. So number 10, try to keep the car maintained. Hold it for as long as you can. 6+ years, 10+ is ideal. And so I referenced the 1920s earlier, right? And how cars were a status symbol. And, I don't know if you guys read The Great Gatsby, F. Scott Fitzgerald's novel. And I think it was kind of set in the 1920s. And one of the things that he did, he used automobiles in his book as a symbol of corruption and deceit and a facade. So I wouldn't go that far and say cars and autos are all those things. But however, I would say that cars, automobiles, your automobile purchases, they do corrupt your overall financial planning and your wealth creation. So I don't want you to get me wrong. I'm not saying don't buy cars, right? They are a necessity for many of us, and especially those of us in the South that don't have great public transportation. We need cars. I'm not saying don't buy cars. And I'm not saying I'm not going to go out and buy another expensive car. I probably will. You probably will. All right? But what I am saying is be careful. Do your research your purchase, prepare, and know that this car purchasing experience is not a wealth building or status activity. It is quite the opposite. So thank you guys for joining us for this episode of Dads and Dollars. We're glad you could. Please follow us we are on Facebook. We are Dads and Dollars is on Twitter, and we are also on LinkedIn. So if you would follow our pages here, please share us, rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. Anything less would be uncivilized. We look forward to seeing you next time on the next episode of Dads and Dollars.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Dads and Dollars. If you found the information shared today valuable, please share with your friends and family via your social media. If you have a request for a future financial topic for Dads and Dollars, please email us at ask@dadsanddollars.com. For further information on your financial journey, you may purchase The Quest for Financial Independence, 10 areas of your financial planning you should not ignore, by visiting our website, dadsanddollars.com. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. Individual tax and legal matters should be discussed with your tax or legal professional. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful. All performance reference is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Traditional IRA account owners have considerations to make before performing a Roth IRA conversion. These primarily include income tax consequences on the converted amount in the year of conversion, withdrawal limitations from a Roth IRA, and income limitations for future contributions to a Roth IRA. In addition, if you are required to make a required minimum distribution, RMD, in the year you convert, you must do so before converting to a Roth IRA. Asset allocation does not ensure a profit or protect against a loss. There is no assurance that the techniques and strategies discussed are suitable for all investors or will yield positive outcomes. The purchase of certain securities may be required to affect some of these strategies. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. Guests and their companies are not affiliated with or endorsed by LPL Financial or Intellis Advisory Group. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA, SIPC. Advisory services offered through Intellis Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Intellis Advisory Group and Intellis Wealth Management are separate entities from LPL Financial.